How have you been?
I've been good. Just finished work and dinner and doing just my
How have you been?
I've been good. I've been good. Just finished work. It's funny how that thing is sung.
Dinner and Yeah.
Doing just my
How have you been?
I've been good. I've been good. Just finished
Live on YouTube.
work. It's funny how that thing is sung.
Yeah.
Doing just my
How have you been?
I've been good. I've been good. Just finished
Live on YouTube.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, shalom alaikum. It's Yom Kippur, shalom alaikum. It's salam alaikum. It's peace be with each and every one of you. It's the birth anniversary of the Prophet Muhammad is coming up on Friday for those who are celebrating. And also it's October, it's fall here in Canada. It's Women's History Month, it's Caribbean Heritage Month. We just observed the Truth and Reconciliation holiday and Friday gone, and the Thanksgiving is coming this weekend. So lots of stuff happening, but we are thrilled and grateful for having Jordan Moyer joining us all the way from Mexico on our One Love podcast, and he'll be sharing with us his story. We have interviewed him before, and we are honored. He is a recipient of the One Love Galas Award, and I have known him since his days back in incarceration, and now he's doing awesome things. So it's only rightful that he gets a chance to give us an update and to share with us his story. So Jordan, assalamu alaikum, and how have you been recently? You've been traveling, I suppose, from Canada.
Walaikum assalam, bro. Yes, I basically just left Canada. I sold my house, and I quit my job more than a year and a half ago now. I spent a good year and a half in Mexico and Colombia. Recently, it was kind of a bit of an excursion for about a month. I spent a few days in the Toronto area. I spent some time in Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and then I wound up here in Morelia, where I've kind of settled down. And I just intend to stay here for, the minimum 6 months, but I've got a plan to get kind of I think it's called like a citizenship or nationality. And I don't, if inshallah, all goes well, I'm just not really going to leave.
Okay. All right. So that sounds exciting. And the fact that you were traveling even during COVID and you went to some other countries, tell us a bit about that experience when you left Edmonton.
Yeah, so it was unique, I guess, because in Edmonton, it was a lockdown, and it was, I guess, sort of winter. Like April is still kind of winter in Edmonton, and it was the third lockdown. I ended up leaving because I was in my house in Leduc, which is south of Edmonton. My girlfriend at the time, ex-girlfriend, ex-fiance, didn't lose her job. So thankfully, that was great. Alhamdulillah. However, I was stuck there and kind of by myself, going a little bit stir crazy. And I had a buddy that was out and about in Playa del Carmen, and I decided to go as well. Initially, I wasn't sure how to get out. I thought that, you couldn't leave Canada. However, my friend Liam was kind enough to walk me through how to get out. And it was simple, just book a flight, you just go. There was no restrictions in terms of entering Mexico. It was really, really simple. So I went to this town called Zihuatanejo first, which is close to Ixtapa. A lot of people have heard of Ixtapa. I think it would be pronounced Ixtapa. and I was staying at a friend. So my dad has a friend named Bob. I stayed at his stepson's house initially, and then I moved over to Playa del Carmen after that. I spent some time. I ended up quitting my job while I was there because the fiance was coming down, and I had like some time with her planned. So when the opening came, I had already kind of started my online business, and I just decided to kind of wash my hands with the corporate world, which I had been in for over 5 years, and sort of go all in on myself and my dreams, because I had a long time, for at least 2 years while I was in there at LA Fitness in Edmonton, I was working a lot, 6 days per week, roughly 60, 70 hours on average, including travel time to and from. And, I had this plan in my mind that, one day I'd be able to work remotely. And I ended up sort of, I don't know how to phrase it correctly, but I guess the opportunity came up to start earlier than I had planned, because my exit strategy was about 2 to 3 years out. And then when I ended up being down there, I guess I really didn't have a choice other than to just go all into myself and start doing that. And then I was up in the air for a little while. Like, it was a little bit difficult. I was struggling with some things internally, mentally, spiritually, etc. However, recently all that cleared up, thankfully, alhamdulillah. And, I ended up coming back to Edmonton this year in January, February, March. I think it was March or April, after I was in Cancun, because I from Colombia, I spent some time in Mexico City after that for an event that I wanted to go to. And then I had to go to Cancun to help out the brother of a friend of mine with a project that I've kind of named the Jungle Mansion, which is down in Cancun there. And so after spending some time there, getting everything set up, getting all the work, the renovations kind of set up on it, I ended up going back home to basically cut ties. And that took me a few months, but September 1st is when my house closed this year. It's like completely, and I was able to leave. So I spent another couple days in Edmonton just waiting for a flight, because there was I waited for a better price flight, just a few days. And then I spent time with a good friend of mine in Toronto. And after that, I started to make my way out here. I have a friend here in Morelia, which is why I came here. I actually met him on a rooftop with it's like a rooftop restaurant kind of thing in Playa del Carmen about a year and a half ago. And we just stayed in touch through Instagram. And, I had seen the town a little bit. It's got a lot of rich history. It was I think 1400s or the 1600s. There was a lot of things built here. Downtown, there's a lot of colonial Spanish architecture, Baroque time period kind of thing. And it's really beautiful. This town's in the mountains, and the climate is nice. Excuse me. The climate is nice because it's about like 22 to 26 degrees usually on average here. And then in the beach towns, last year I actually left early because it was too hot. I couldn't even leave my house without my shirt being drenched in sweat. It would say on the weather thing feels like 38. And Medellin is where I spent time in Colombia. And I learned a lot of Spanish there. My Spanish teacher's from Colombia. I do speak Spanish now, so that's really good. It's definitely not perfect, but it's getting me through well enough. So I'm quite enjoying it. Pardon?
¿Cómo está?
¿Cómo está? Estoy bien, parcero. Muy bien.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's very interesting because different areas have different dialects. They use the same word differently. And then there's an accent that's very different in Medellin versus where I'm at in Mexico currently.
Wonderful. Mexico is the place. And you're so lucky to have transcended all the troubles here if you've been through during COVID in Canada and able to set yourself a goal and you have achieved it. So let's go back a bit so that people could be inspired by you and what you have achieved. How did you grow up in Canada, and what some stories that you remember from your childhood?
From my childhood. So, I mean, I was fortunate enough to grow up in Canada, like a great country overall. And I have great parents. I love them very much. However, they definitely have struggled with their own problems throughout their lives. So my childhood, there's definitely like, a lot of violence involved in it, stuff like that. I ended up dropping out of high school and living on the streets when I was 16, where, I ended up like getting into the drug game pretty heavily. And I stayed in that for basically 10 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
How did you manage to survive given all the challenges and the troubles that brings and the heat it brings towards you?
I mean, like, well, I spent 5 of those 10 years in prisons and jails. So, I mean, I don't know necessarily, like, I don't think I did survive the heat based on that. Right. But it's definitely rough. Like, I did live a completely different life than I do now. There were a lot of, I guess you would just call them like I lived the criminal life. Right. So I kind of did what we had to do at those times to get by. And it was a case of like, hey, if I didn't do certain things, then I wouldn't really be able to eat or have a place to sleep. And just because of like how I did separate from school and everything like that, I remember like at certain times I went from like, you can make money doing illegal things for sure. And I felt like at one time I didn't know what else I could do in order to support myself. And I mean, I remember one time I was on parole actually after we'd met, and I had tried to get a job at a grocery store, just stocking shelves or sweeping or whatever they would have needed me to do. And they wouldn't even hire me. So, I definitely felt pretty bad about myself at the time. But I had like, I had like I said, I had spent 5 years in prison, and during that time, I sort of developed the mindset that, everything freedom wise had been taken away from me, and I wasn't able to do much in terms of leaving or, anything productive like that. But I just resolved that, if everything was going to be taken away from me, the one thing that couldn't be taken away from me was my time. So I tried to use that as much as I could to work on becoming a better version of myself through exercise and reading, basically.
Wow. You had quite an experience as a young man growing up in Canada, and you were able to embrace faith whilst incarcerated. How did you come to embrace the faith of Islam?
Well, so Canada is a unique country. It's very unique in the sense that a lot of different cultures have, I guess, congregated in one area. So I know a lot of people from different cultures than what I was brought up in. And before we met, I think it was about 6 years or 8 years, I had different Muslim friends, and I had just been asking questions and sort of reading, and then eventually I started reading the Quran, and it was one of those little booklets, honestly, that just said like it was the story of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that really kind of opened my eyes and inspired me to want to emulate I mean, not exactly, but like, I mean, I don't think I would be able to emulate exactly how he lived, but it was just basically about his life and how he tried to live in a good way, be kind to everybody and do things like in a halal way. And at that point, I kind of resolved that, yeah, this makes the most sense for me, because I did grow up Roman Catholic. And the one thing about that which like it's I think all religions are kind of great. They kind of teach that you should be a good person, which is very good. But I didn't really understand the praying to somebody that's not God part of it, which for me personally was a little bit confusing. So, right, the La ilaha illallah, there's no God but God, and that kind of really spoke to me as well.
Incredible. Wow. And you're so articulate. And as I said earlier, you were struck by the character of Prophet Muhammad, and verily, at this time of the year, in the 12th of Rabiul Awwal, when he was born, according to some historians, Muslims observe the celebration of Prophet's birth, given the fact that he was sent to the entire human race and not to one particular people. So do you find that Muslims kind of held back this information from you and maybe many others like yourself in Canada? Like, they're not aware of who Muhammad is and how universal his teachings are, and he's meant for all humanity?
So that's an interesting question, and at the risk of diverting a little much from it, I think that the main issue potentially could be misinformation. I remember like my dad's big on CNN, and I remember watching some things. I must have been 12 or 14, somewhere in that age range, because I did leave his house soon after age 14. There was some stuff on the news about like suicide bombers or this or that, and it was kind of, I think, broadcast as Islam or Muslims in general were like terrorists, and that's really not the case. As we know, like people that are propagating or committing acts of terror or violence, that's not in line with Islam at all.
Islam is peace. It's just some people who have the devil that do devilish things.
Right.
It's good. It's great that you were able to interact. And that's something that I say to brothers and sisters outside, that they are not aware that there are good souls inside the prisons. Their crime do not define them. They have compassion, they have knowledge, they're sharing, they're caring, they're doing things that human beings outside do. But they're not, they're judged for what crime they've committed. So for you to have found Islam inside the prison through the mercy and the guidance of God Almighty and through the compassion of Muslims, that's an incredible story. And that speaks of the Prophet Muhammad is described in the Quran as Rahmatul lil Alameen, mercy to the entire human race. Do you have any stories that you have come across, maybe in your travels, maybe in Canada, when you're outside, that where people actually acknowledge your compassion and your mercifulness?
Like mine personally?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, well, typically I get a lot of feedback. I mean that I am like kind and doing good things, I guess.
Yeah. And you were a trainer for LA Fitness, which is the largest fitness organization in the world, and you made it to be the top salesperson for 5 years and a manager. Tell us a bit about that experience and if you had some challenges getting to the top.
Well, I definitely had some challenges. However, so I first moved to Edmonton to get away from Ontario because I have an auntie that lives out there, and she's honestly my closest family member at this point. I'm really grateful to have her. Thank God for her. And I went out there initially thinking that I'd get hired at Good Life, but they didn't hire me simply because of my criminal record. They kind of put one blanket label on me because of that, and then said bye. And I was lucky enough to get hired at LA Fitness when I interviewed with the vice president at the time, named Aaron. And I basically just I had no prior experience with this, and when I started, I basically became pretty adept pretty quickly. All I did was just what I do, like, work hard. I always believe in being the hardest worker in the room. And when I went to get promoted, which was about 45 days after I got hired, I was about to be promoted into an assistant manager position. Aaron came to me and told me that they would be doing a criminal record check. And so, there were people around at the time. So I just said, that's fine, no problem. And then as soon as I had the opportunity, I pulled him aside. I said, hey, let's talk real quick in private. And I was like, about that criminal record check, there's going to be a few things that came up. And Aaron was like a great enough person to literally go to battle for me with the process of retaining me as a staff member and putting me into a managerial role. So I couldn't be more grateful for his participation in that. But honestly, like during the whole time, like in Islam, in the Quran, the Hadiths, different teachings, there's like outlines for business practices. And that's kind of what I followed. Like, it's pretty simple. It's just like, be honest and treat people well. So, through all of it, like I've dealt with different types of people from every, I guess, race or country, whatever you want to call it. Some people were newly immigrated from Europe. Some people were newly immigrated from India or the Philippines. I ended up managing a club on the north side, which oddly enough, the north side of Edmonton has a large Lebanese population. And so I always felt right at home there because especially once everyone knew I was Muslim as well, it was really great.
Well, you're right in the heart of the shawarma land.
Yeah, the shawarma does not get better. Yeah, they do donaires there, actually. A lot of donaires.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a place called Eddie's Donaire. I remember that place specifically because Angel and I think, pretty sure his name is Dan and Angel, they have Eddie's Donaire, and they came to the gym and we became friends there. So really grateful for that experience as well.
Yeah, of course. I remember having lunch with you at the Paramount, which is another famous shawarma joint in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But coming back to your story, you said you dropped out from high school. You end up homeless in Toronto?
Brantford, realistically. So yeah, like I did drop out of high school. I was living with my mom, and basically the idea was that I preferred working rather than going to school. However, I was just battling through some addiction problems myself at the time. And so from 16 to 18, I did have different addiction problems. And then, yeah, like during that period of time, at times I was homeless. I stayed at a shelter called the YRC. I also stayed at a shelter called the Salvation Army. And those were some of the, I guess, lowest times in my life.
Well, I must say that you are brave and courageous to not make that define you. You actually rose above that and you got ahead in life. And maybe that experience of yours has helped build this character within you to always give back and to donate and to be charitable. I know for a fact that you have donated repeatedly to the One Love table, the food hampers that we distribute during COVID in Toronto, and many other charities. Do you think that your experience has really motivated you or helped shape the person you are today?
Yeah, 100%. Like, if it wasn't for, I'm grateful for all the negative things that I went through, all the struggles and the pain that I faced, because of that, it's developed me into the person I am now. And I mean, there's definitely different types of people in the world, and I can't speak for anybody else, but like, I know that there are struggles that other people are facing. And I mean, it's just my hope that somehow, if I'm able to, continue to push and develop myself into the vision that I have for myself, that it might help other people that were in my situation, which again, at one point was that I didn't know how to do anything else. I didn't think there was another option. I thought very little of myself, and yeah, like,
You're an amazing person, Jordan, and I'm proud to know you. And especially know that you have taken on the fitness, online fitness and health, and you train men who are successful over the age of 30. Tell us a bit about the training and how does that work online?
yeah. So it's all it's a simple but not easy process. There's a lot of different aspects that go into this, in terms of like nutrition and exercise, and also like mindset, stuff like that. But yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have I guess attracted success-minded individuals, and I like to think of myself as a success-minded individual as well, because while I was at LA Fitness, which is the largest fitness company in the world, I was one of the top performers regularly. So within Western Canada, I was lucky enough to be put in charge of the busiest club and then maintain that role until I did leave. And I would continuously have numbers that were above other, you know what I mean, other managers' numbers. And when I left, since I've left, you know, it's so nice. I think that you know, most people that I talk to, they say the club's not the same since you left, and you know, this, that, and the other thing. But there are good people in charge right now. I know some of them. So, and some of my former staff is still employed with them too. They're good people as well. But yeah, like I was always, I guess like personally me, like I don't want to be considered average. I'm never satisfied with falling in with the crowd or performing at a lower ability than I believe myself to be capable of, because, you know, I've grown so much. I just believe that there's really no ceiling to human potential. So, you know, anything that you feel like is like a ceiling or a limit or whatever, realistically could just be looked at as a plateau. And I'm not sure exactly how this has happened, but most of my team members right now that I do essentially work for, that are on my team, following my program, losing weight, building muscle, gaining strength, gaining mental strength, and realizing more success in the other areas of life, are successful men, you know, that have their own companies, they're business owners, they're high-level managers, they're doctors, things like that.
Amazing. You could hear me still?
I can hear you.
Yeah, something is wrong with the video. So let's talk about you have a future goal coming up, and you're working towards that. When I knew you, you were a skinny lad, and now you have a physique that is award-winning, and you have put that. How did you get to that physique, and what is your near future plan when it comes to fitness?
Yeah, so like with my own personal fitness, I do have a desire to achieve what I believe would be, I guess, sort of the highest level of the personal physique goal, which would be known as a men's physique pro card. I don't like, I'm highly competitive by nature. However, I don't enjoy competing just for the sake of it. I enjoy competing to absolutely dominate the competition. And that could be because of where I've come from. It could be because I feel that I have something to prove, potentially, not too sure. So in terms of my own physique goals, that's kind of what I would be personally working toward. And I've started out on a 2-year plan to pursue that.
So it's a men pro card.
Yeah, men's physique pro card. So
Is it
inshallah,
international?
that's
Is this an
Pardon me?
international competition?
There are international competitions. Yeah, it's not. So I think there's levels. There's like a regional, there's a national, and then I guess there would be like an international, something like that. I don't know exactly how that works, but
Man,
part of that is because I do know that I'm quite far away from where I would need to be for that, and
yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things that kind of keeps me going as well. That like uh if you have a goal that is too small or too easy to hit, you know, you might not work as hard for it. So I try to aim for something large so that, you know, like it's a little bit scary and, you know, it almost seems impossible, but I believe that I've already done several things that people would consider not possible. So I just want to keep pursuing it. Because yeah, like at my lowest weight, I guess I'm over 6'3" and I was 130 pounds at one time. Right now I'm just sitting about 190, sort of maintaining or whatever. I've been as high as 220 where I was pretty fat. That's when I was really, really focused on work. I do sort of believe in this 4 burners theory. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically like that. There's, you know, different areas of life, family, relationships, career, and health, and you can only put so much energy into any 4 of them at one time. So I did turn most of the other 4 down to focus on career at one time. Right now, I'm focused on relationships, family, career, and health, and I'm trying to put my all into all of them, I guess, as best I can, anyway.
you're putting your all into your halal.
Yeah, all into the halal.
Lovely. So tell us a bit about what is it when someone joins your program online, what is it expected of them, and what's the results they're expected to gain?
Yeah, so it's different on an individual basis. One young entrepreneur that I work with, also named Jordan from Toronto, I met him in Colombia initially. We became friends, and then you know, he became a team member recently, a couple months ago. He wants to gain lean body mass, and he wants to gain the mindset and the habits that will make him more disciplined and more successful in his business. So that's what we're focused on. Other team members, I have a doctor on the team, Ram, who has been, he wanted to lose fat initially. And I can only imagine that for doctors, it's kind of important to be healthy and live healthy. And I actually just today, I had a conversation with Jorge, who's a doctor very close to here in Guadalajara, Mexico. He's about to be starting a weight control clinic, and his goal is fat loss as well. So he wants to lead by example for his potential clients because he's going to help them with their health. And he also has a 5-year-old son that he wants to, you know what I mean, set that good example for. So that's what we're going to be working on. It's like a weight loss goal for sure, but there's so much more to it than that. And the main thing that I expect from my team members is that they're going to communicate with me honestly, openly, and clearly, because like I have basically at this point 16 years of fitness knowledge and experience, you know, mostly self-taught. I have been certified through different bodies for different things. However, most of my knowledge has been gained from books that I read in prison, and also YouTube actually is a great resource. So my whole thing is that, you know, they get to use me, they get to use my 16 years of knowledge and experience to save them time and energy in pursuing their goals. And I want to be able to teach them habits, skills, and techniques that they're going to be able to take with them for life.
Man, I have to join your team as well.
I'll make room for you anytime, brother.
Yes. So coming back to your story, what if you have to speak in front of a classroom of young people, what would you like to share with them to inspire them, given the challenges we're having right now in Toronto with young people getting involved in trouble and all of that?
Yeah, so like, how to put this into words? A lot of times the trouble is internal, right? And there's a level of accountability and ownership you have to take for everything, because wherever you are, whatever's going on, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like your circumstances may not, if you're in a low income family and you have a, you know what I mean, a criminal element around you pretty frequently, yes, it's there, but no, you don't have to follow it, and you can be different than that, right? And you have to take responsibility for making different choices, right? And if you don't make those different choices, then you have to take responsibility that you're where you're at because of yourself. But even though it's not going to be easy, like nothing worth having is easy, right? Everything's a test from Allah, and it's fortunate that we're given these tests, and the harder your life seems, the more difficult your challenges are, the more faith that Allah has in you, you can fucking get through them. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, like it's difficult. Like, I mean, I was a full-time crack dealer from 16 to 26. So, like I was in court, called a career criminal, this, that, and the other thing. A grocery store wouldn't hire me. I had to work. I had to read books. I still, right now, presently, like I go and make time for my friends and like family and things like that, but I make different choices than them. I was out when I got here, my friend Jorge, different Jorge, not the doctor. He wanted to take me out, show me his town, because he really loved it. He was a really nice guy. And we went to this thing called the Correos, I believe, which is like live bands they have here in Mexico. And it was at a bar. Everyone was drinking, but I don't drink. So, I just kind of hung out. I had my Coke Zero, and you know what I mean? I enjoyed myself, right? But like that was difficult. And it's, you gotta just pick what you want, and you gotta pursue it no matter what comes up in your way, and no matter how difficult it is, you got to commit to it.
Man, this is a priceless interview. I wish the world could hear you and hear you speak. What do you think about the Middle East and the Muslim countries benefiting from your expertise, coming from Canada and coming from a different culture, and of course embracing Islam, but more importantly, bringing to them health and fitness and the self-discipline? You think they will listen to you? Do you have any plans for them?
I think it would be great. Like, I don't know exactly what the future is going to hold. It's definitely unknown, but I want to travel to more places. I only picked the place that I'm at right now because it's calm, it's nice, and has a low cost of living. So I'm just trying to sit here and build everything up for myself. And I mean, I do, like, I'm talking to a girl in Algeria, which is a Muslim country, and our plan is to get married. So I can only assume that I would go over there at some point and, end up visiting more countries like that.
That's amazing. Yeah, ahlan wa sahlan. That's amazing. A girl, she would be speaking French and Arabic, both.
Yeah, so she has, I think, 4 or something languages, maybe more, but they're in Algerian, they have Arabic, but they have the Algerian Arabic as well.
Yeah, and Barbary, and English and French, and maybe Italian.
Yeah, that's what her background is Berber.
Yeah, Berber. That's how the Moors from North Africa ended up in Spain and established the famous Muslim Spain, or which is known as Andalusia. It's from the Berbers. The Berbers. So, subhanallah, beautiful, akhi, beautiful. We're gonna share this this message with the world, and it's Thanksgiving coming up, and we want to be grateful. And we don't care about all these frills and turkeys and whatever, but we want to be grateful. But there's some people who still feel after colonialism, the British colonialized the First Nations in Canada, and that we just observed the Truth and Reconciliation. We just observed the Queen passing. We just observed the Pope coming. There's so much around this topic about colonialism. Do you have any comments about how we can navigate these times of when colonialism has become even more aware in people's mind, and some people want to do Turkey, they don't want to do Turkey. What's your take about how the British colonialized the First Nations in Canada?
So that colonialism would be the process of the British and other people coming over to basically take over North America. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So personally, me, I'm Métis. I'm Cree. One of my descendants is Cuthbert, or I guess I'm a descendant of Cuthbert Grant, who was a bit of a warrior or something with the people back then.
Yeah, Cuthbert.
I don't really have a strong opinion on it. Like, it's in the past. The past doesn't exist. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. We have the present moment, and we can use the present moment as best as we can so that the future will be better. But, any like sort of animosity or things like that really just need to be let go. What's the point in holding on to them?
So yeah, so of course you don't want people to feel sorry for you and pity you. You don't want people to respect you and love you for who you are, and help give you a lifting hand as you move forward.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, every single person like on earth, like we're all basically just brothers and sisters, right? So like why would we want to do anything except try to influence each other positively?
Lovely. That's basic. That's beautiful from a Islamic principle, right? In the Ikhwa, the believers are but brothers, and we know for a fact as Canadian and as Canadian Muslims that we are allies to the First Nations and Indigenous people of Canada. We have the very fact that we are sitting on their land. We're sitting on the Mississaugas and the Credit Valley and Anishinaabe and their lands throughout North America. And you coming from that background and then accepting Islam and then moving forward with your life, you're a great example. And I think you should be made a hero and an example and a model to the rest of us here in Canada as someone who has embraced different cultures and do not make his past traumatize him in reaching his future. If you have to say something to the elders of the Métis community and Indigenous community, what do you tell them? What would you say to them?
Specifically regarding
allyship in Islam and being brothers and sisters.
Well, I think that it's not too different than what the elders kind of believe in. And I mean, I'm definitely not the most knowledgeable person on native traditions and everything. I have participated in quite a few, and in Brantford when I was incarcerated in there several different times, there was the elder Kelly Curley, who was part of my growth and development as well. I've learned many things from him, and I think that basically like it's not too far, like we're not too far off from each other. We all believe that we should be treating each other well, and I think that the one big native thing is like respect of the earth and things like that. And with technology, it's kind of hard to say like what is damaging and what is not, because there's a lot of conflicting information out there, right? So in the meantime, I think that we should just view each other as brothers and sisters and treat each other as such.
Wonderful. We have done some work with the 6 nations in the Grand Rapid. You have met the Imam Tariq at the Brantford Mosque, and recently he was fundraising for I think a hospital and for the reservation, if I'm not wrong. But he has invited me to come back there, and there's an elder named Dugio in Brantford that I've invited more than once in Toronto to the One Love Gala. But we are so challenged in the Muslim community when it comes to allyship and knowledge sharing and wisdom sharing and knowing who First Nations are. and being there for them. Any advice as how we as a community can do better into creating those pathways to being brothers and sisters of the indigenous people of Canada?
I think maybe learn more about what they feel and what they believe.
Definitely. وَتَعَاوَنُوا بِالْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. As Allah says, cooperate in goodness and in righteousness, and do not cooperate in evil and lewdness. Well, I'm going to close off the interview, Jordan. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We've reached a beautiful nexus of learning of the different layers and the different intersectionality of your life, First Nations and Muslim and Canadian, and coming from a rough background and being a successful fitness trainer and now a globe trotter. So what's next for you?
Well, I'd like to say I know, but that's kind of something I enjoy as well. Like I don't 100% know. I know the more that I work on myself and develop myself, the more successful I'll become. I have a lot of different plans and ideas in terms of, developing other sort of side projects from what I'm working on right now. I'm always going to be in health and fitness. I realized that earlier this year when I was in Colombia. I have a lot of things that kind of draw me into it, and I have some injuries. So like I have a broken back and stuff like that. I'm always going to have to be able to stay on top of my fitness and health and mobility. So that's going to be my core. But aside from that, I think that, another passion of mine is real estate, property development, and things like that. So I'm always looking for different projects and opportunities to work on that would be in that area.
Oh, beautiful. A man of course, a man of goals.
Yeah, right. And of course, like I want to travel, you know what I mean, and see more areas of the world, because ever since I was young, I've always loved the stories, the legends, the myths, from everywhere. And I'm a big fan of architecture as well. So one of the things, like I have several friends from Palestine, and, there's beautiful architecture out there. I want to check that out. I want to check out Egypt. I want to check out, Spain. I want to check out France. I kind of want to see it all.
Yes, for sure. The Muslim, again, I mean, the Andalusian architecture, the arches and the archetypes and the domes and the symmetrical ceramics that you see, it has found its way all the way in Central America and South America. So some of the things you see in Mexico, it goes back to the Muslims and their influence upon European art. Mm-hmm. So we are grateful for that. We are grateful for your knowledge, and we're grateful for having you tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you be listening this podcast from, know that Jordan Moyer is an amazing young man who joined us all the way from Mexico, Central America, and he's Canadian, and he's Muslim, he's Métis, and but most importantly, he is a man with a passion to make sure that your life, your body, and your mind stay fit and healthy. So look him up on Instagram and join his training club, Jordan Moyer. Share with us your coordinates so that people can find you, and we can also post that so that they can become members of your training.
Perfect, thanks. So most of social media is Jordan Moyer, JordanMoyer 88, because that's the year I was born. I have youtube.com/Jordan Moyer, and those are my main areas.
All right, thank you very much. And
thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.